Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Flight Training the Way I See It with your host, me, Mike Shiflett. And this is the December 2023 video edition of also our newsletter. So here we are talking about a lot of things on the last week of the month. It's the 27th of December as I do the podcast, and we've got some things to talk about, some good things. So we're going to talk about Redbird Migration, a flight training conference. We're going to talk about an English language test that flight instructors have to give, and some of them don't know they even have to give it. Talk about that, and of course all the links and ways to get this information, additional information will be provided to you, especially if you go to our website, cfibootcamp.com, and opt in for our newsletter. That is the paper PDF version of this video podcast, Flight Training the Way I See It, in newsletter format. So you want to get that. You want to get that because there are links in there. So you just have to simply click and get what you need, okay? We're going to talk about regional airline hiring and why it is slowed to a snail's pace at the moment. Talk about that. Is that permanent? We're going to know soon. Going to talk about the FAA's Reauthorization bill, just 4 quick points on that. And of course, we'll have our pro tips at the end. So if you're in the car driving along, we'll pay attention to the road. If you're in your house and just listening to the podcast, maybe listening to, well, welcome to you. And you'll get everything here in about 30 minutes time. That's about what it takes for us to go through the show, okay? So the next podcast we do is probably going to be done with a little different background and format. We've set up our recording studio because we're doing lots of new videos this year and some other things. And so we're probably going to put it into that format. So you're going to see things a little bit differently next year if you're watching this as a video podcast. Now, if you're listening to it, that's not going to change. So there you go. Okay, let's talk about Redbird Migration. The registration for this event is open now. It's now open. So you can go to Redbird Migration on, just Google that. It's done with Redbird flight simulators. And they put on a conference. They've done it about 15 years, pretty close to that. And it's attended by about 400 people now, maybe more. And I usually speak at it, or I've spoken at it before, and plan on speaking at it this year. We'll see how that goes. But I'm pretty sure they'll let me back in, pretty sure. So anyway, and I've got some great topics, if they do, that you'll be able to hear. And you can hear some of my stuff if you go to their website and look at last year's Redbird Migration. So what is it? Yeah, what is it? Why would you want to go? Well, it's one of the few, if not the only, conference that's centered exclusively around flight training. And so some nice things about it is it's free to you. You don't have to pay anything. And they include a dinner. And at the dinner, the AOPA's pilot award, not award, flight school excellence awards. The awards are given out in real time during the event, and a lot of people show up there to receive their awards and just to see how everything went. So that's the the dinner on the last day. So that's a nice thing to have. And they also include 2 lunches, so you get all that for nothing. Not to pay anything, just get there. So where is getting there? Well, it's now in Houston this year. It's going to be at the Lone Star Museum, Lone Star Flight Museum in Houston, Texas. And it's going to be March the 5th through the 8th. So that's the dates. The 5th is usually a reception and registration. And then 7th will be a full show, full-on program, usually very good keynotes. And then after that, the next day is a partial day, usually ending at about 3. That's typically how it is. So let's, the only other thing I was thinking about is the other conference that we have, which is brand new, that's centered around flight training, is the NAFI Summit, National Association of Flight Instructors Summit. That was in Lakeland, and I was there this year. I didn't speak there this year, but I was there to see if it's something I wanted to speak at, or if it was a good fit for us, and it is. So that's nice. Now, you can register at, just register, Google register, Redbird Migration 2024, and it's a very short registration form. And then you'll be able to do that. Now, I don't know if they cut it off at a certain amount of people. I'm sure they do. So I would do it sooner rather than later because March is coming up, right? You don't want to wait till last minute to try to get a space, especially when they have catering and other things to take care of. And then they'll be announcing the keynote speakers and also the who's going to be talking about what. So usually ForeFlight is there. A lot of the main players are there. Gary Reeves is there. Gary GPS, guy in the pink shirt, Reeves. I'm there. Other people do various topics around things, and they're very poignant to what's going on today. So Redbird Migration is a great event to go to. The people at Redbird do a really, really, really good job putting this on. They've been doing it for a long time. Last year we had it at EAA's headquarters there in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. A little difficult to get into, a little tricky. So it's a little easier to get to Houston. So you shouldn't have any trouble getting there. So anyway, that's where that's going to be. So join that. And again, you can Google just Redbird Migration 2024. You'll find it. Second topic is, did you know that there is an aviation English language test that has to be given by flight instructors all throughout flight training? That's news, huh? What do you say? What? I never heard that. Yeah, so it's called the Aviation English Language Standard. And so you are required to evaluate a person's ability to read, speak, write, understand English at ICAO level 4, which we'll talk about in a second, level. And that's for any point of contact you have with a pilot, whether they're a flight review, whether it's certification, whether it's issuing a student pilot certificate, whether it's issuing or helping to issue UAS, remote pilot certificate. You're required to administer this test. And if they don't pass the test, you have to refer them to the FSDO in which has jurisdiction over them. And they are the only ones who can then determine if they read, speak, write, understand English enough. So this is a big deal. And a lot of CFRs aren't doing it. But yet, regulation-wise, you're going to be liable for what happens if you don't. So I don't think you want to go there. The AMEs used to do this, issue the student pilot certificate, for example, and they were terrible at it. They were good about issuing the certificate, but very bad about evaluating the language ability of the students. So we had issues. Once when I was chief pilot of a big flight school, we had a student who was at a non-towered airport, and this student was not a great English speaker, as you can imagine. We had a lot of foreign students where I was. And so they almost ran into the fuel island because they couldn't understand the instructions that someone was giving them on the radio about how to get into those places, that place. And basically they clipped the edge of the fuel farm. It could have been disastrous, right? And there just happened to be an FAA inspector there. And so he went over and evaluated what's going on, and they really couldn't understand. And so why does this person hold a student pilot certificate? You know, and another one was they had a private pilot certificate, could barely do much better. So anyway, I started to clamp down a little bit about that, and the flight instructor, actually the AME at that point, got in some serious trouble. But now that onus has been put on you, if you're a flight instructor, onto you. Okay, so here's what we got to do. So again, you can Google some of this, but so if you're in your car or something, you can't remember something right now. There's an AC. The AC is AC20. That's 68B. That's the AC number, AC20-68B. And it talks about this standard and how to evaluate it. So that's the first thing we need to know. The different ICAO levels are ICAO level 1 through 6, 6 being native fluency. And so our students are required to be conversational. That's at ICAO level 4. And it generally means that they can be clearly understood, can have interactions about a topic. They can make problems maybe with some sentence structure, pronunciation here and there. They can have maybe some issues with tenses, like the past or present tense. As long as the meaning is understood and clear, that's all that matters. Now, you say, well, how would I know how to do that, right? That's where the AC comes in. So the AC, firstly, tells you that you're to give them something to read that's technical in aviation, and then have them write or paraphrase what that means to them, what sort of this means to your situation, maybe your situation, right? How do you apply this to your situation? And then you're to have a conversation about it. So that part tests out their ability to read, speak, write, understand English, but not at the level, right? Not at the right level. So we don't know the level yet, but we do know they're able to do it. So the level part is there is a website link in that AC that takes you to ICAO's website. And within the website, you can click that link and it will give examples of people speaking at various ICAO levels. Now, in this level requirement, there's many things to evaluate. So there's 5 things, and you'll see them when you look at the ICAO's website. You'll see the person speaking at English. Maybe they spoke Arabic as a as the original mother tongue, or maybe it was Dutch. They have Russian, they have Chinese, they have many different examples. And they have different levels that people are speaking at. And so you want to compare how your student, your person is speaking compared to those levels. And you're to evaluate it for pronunciation, structure, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and interactions. Now, again, the website will give you more information on how to do that, but basically it's by comparing. Once you have the basic nut cracked of, okay, they can read, speak, write, understand English, but I give them that something to read and write about it and talk about it, then it's at what level? And I think there is where you get as close as you're going to get. Now, if you can't get them there, you are an evaluator at this point. You're considered an evaluator. And so, for example, when you issue a student pilot certificate, it's going to ask you, do they read, speak, write, understand English language? And before you can press that button that says, yes, you have to actually administer this test. And they have to pass it at ICAO level 4. If they don't, then you have to reject the application and refer it to the local FSDO. And then they are the only people, then the ASI, Aviation Safety Inspector at that FSDO, or the ones there, that FSDO, are the only ones then who can either say pass, fail, we're going to not let you have it, or we are. So it eventually gets to the FSDO. So now, in terms of how many people are actually doing this, I don't know. I don't know how many people are actually rejecting applications. It doesn't seem, because there's no penalty, there's no like, oh, we started it, and now I have to make a decision, pass, fail, or discontinue, or something of that nature, because we don't have that as a way. I don't think many people are doing that. I just think they're not. So, but you're required to. So for sure you could administer the test. And could you administer like a pretest? You could, right? Instead of opening up the IACRA application to do, you could just say, well, let's do this little groundwork here ahead of time and see what it looks like. I think you could do that. Right? But once you actually start the official evaluation, then you're considered an evaluator, and then you've only got those outcomes that I just told you. And so grab a copy of AC 60-28B and go through it. And be sure that you're administering this English language test to pilots. It says all through their training. So for a pilot certificate, for a new rating, for an endorsement, like a table endorsement, a flight review, an IPC, it's required that you're continuously testing them to ICAO level 4. Now, you may be able to get away with knowing that they speak and write, understand English at better than, or at least ICAO 4, because you've done it before, and they are still speaking it the same way to you and understanding the same things and not having any trouble with it. So you may be able to sort of do it that way a little bit, to where you can base it on that. But a lot of people will speak at ICAO level 4, then go back to their home country for like a year or so, and then come back and not really be at ICAO level 4 anymore. So in order to give them this privilege, whatever it is you're going to give them for the flight review, whatever it is, you've got to make sure they read, speak, write, understand English at all times. So that's what's in there. And like I say, I don't think a lot of flight instructors really know about this. Or if they do, they really don't know how to administer it. So I've just given you the way to do it. I've given you the resources, in particular the AC 60-28B. And so that's what the aviation English standard, language standard it means to you. So have at that, and let's see how that goes over the next year. So it's been it's been around for a couple of years already, at least. So why most instructors don't know about it, I really don't know. And I was doing the AOPA FERC, Flight Instructor Refresher Clinic. I'm almost done with it. I'll do it on January 1st, because then if I do it then, it's within 3 months or my renewal, and I can keep my same renewal date. So I just do all the work now, and then I take the test on January 1st or 2nd. So, but anyway, that was in there as well, which I knew, but they were kind of beating that over the head too, so that they're making sure that flight instructors who are renewing are up to date on that. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing, and let's talk about this. This has been coming up in a lot of forums, and I think it's really funny when I hear people comment and complain about it. But regional airline hiring is slowed down even though there's a shortage. And why is that? Shortage of pilots, yes, that's true. But yet the regionals have slowed down hiring. And then you hear all these people who are complaining. Now I'm not sure if I should do this or do that. I don't know that I want to put all this, my eggs in this one basket. Well, this is the only can I tell you something? I'm going to tell you a big secret, okay? This is like the only industry I know where you can get the equivalent of a vocational degree. You can go to a vocational school, not a college, vocational school, for about 13 months. You can get all your ratings, including CFI, and you do another 1 year of time building, so you're now 2 years in, and you can get a job that starts paying $60,000, $70,000 a year and has the potential to pay over 100 in about 3 or 4 more years from that. And then even higher than that once you get on with a major airline, and tapping out at about 260 grand. And people are complaining. They're complaining. It's too much. It's $80,000. You know what student loans are going to be if to go get a degree in art history, right? And which is going to pay you $20,000 a year, right? So people should really stop complaining. Now, one of the things about this business, it is very fickle. So unfortunately, it's one of those things to where if once you're in it, you're that's all you can do. So once you decide I'm going to be a pilot, make sure you really want to do that. Not just it's been your dream, it's been your passion. You know, I need to live my dream. Yeah, okay, until it goes sour. So be prepared for this. So not that it's going to, but what I'm saying by it is that recognize when you make the big commitment to come into this business that there are plenty of opportunities for furloughs, because all seniority based, right? Mergers where you're now merged, your seniority number gets merged in with the other people, and so people go halvesies, right? That's what happens, and then you're also locked into a base where maybe you can't leave. You're going to be stuck there for however long until you upgrade, and then you got to go to a different base. So they're going to have to travel. And if you're dead set on living in wherever it is you want to live, you're probably going to end up commuting, right? So that's, and then you can take 1 day of your commute and of your time off, and another day coming back. That's minimum because you're flying standby. You know, that what I'm getting at is it's not all it's cracked up to be. It can be great, but recognize that. And then people say this all the time, which I don't really believe is I think it's true if we, this is what they say. They say have a plan B, because if the airline thing doesn't work out, well then I think that's really good advice if you're early on. Like if you went, let's say you really did it over the top and you went to get an aerospace engineering degree and you wanted to do that. I decided I want to do the pilot thing more, but I still have an aerospace engineering degree. Okay, if you work for an airline for a year or two and you got furloughed and you're brand new and you went back to being an aeronautical engineer, you'd probably get some takers. People would say, yeah, you know, we'll pay you fill in the blank 60, nearly what you get paid with the airline, nearly. But let's put yourself 20 years in, 15 years in, then get furloughed. And you still have that aeronautical engineering degree, right, that you haven't used in 15 years. You think anybody's going to pay you $200,000, $180,000, what you're making now? No, they're not going to, right? So your plan B needs to include not buying over to the limit of what you can buy. You know, basically don't have 2 houses plus and everything right to the edge, hoping that it's only another year before I'm going to be the 777 captain and I'll make another 80 or 90 on top of that. So we do have to watch it in our business. Okay, so that's just advice. Now let's talk about why regional airlines aren't hiring. They're not hiring first officers. They're hiring captains because we don't have enough captains. That's why. We have airplanes. We have plenty of airplanes now. We have a lot of airplanes. We don't have enough simulators. That's true. But we don't have enough captains. That's why you're seeing the offers go out to captains, like $200,000 signing bonus, $100,000 signing bonus, all this ridiculous amount of stuff, right? But the first officers are like being like, yeah, don't call us, we'll call you right now. Because there's not enough captains to go around. So we have a glutton of first officers who can't get ground school dates because no captains. So once we fix the captain problem, we'll be back needing first officers again. So just chill. Bide your time. The only things that can mess it up for you are things like the economy going south, where there's no one really needing to fly, and corporate flight departments closing, right? Because that's the first thing to go. The jet's the first thing to go, right? When there's issues with the economy. So things like that, or just in general. But in terms of sheer numbers, you know, we're going to need a lot of pilots. So I don't think you're in any kind of bad shape. And if you're out there hustling towards getting the times you need to become a first officer, then keep doing that. You may have to wait a little bit, but okay, wah, you know. So there's that. I mean, like I was saying, you know, what other kind of job are you going to get where you can put in 2 years and make 60 to 80 grand a year, right? To start, right? So there you go. So that's what's happening. So I think a bunch of that will go away here. And I wouldn't say fairly soon. I'll say within a year. The other thing we have is, even though we sometimes do have captains, we don't have enough sims. I don't know if you know, but for example, 777 sims, there's only like 20 some in the world, maybe 30 in the entire world, right? So then when you have captains and first officers who were sitting at home, during the pandemic and weren't current in the sim, now you have, 1,900 captains, 1,900 FOs on the 777s worldwide with 20, 30 simulators, maybe 40 on the outside. Well, wow, that's going to take a little while. And then getting new ones. What about that, right? So, yeah, if it's something like 7.3s and there was plenty of them, well, that's a lot easier. But on other certain types of equipment, there's just not enough sims either. So that's a big bottleneck. And they're going to take recurrent people first, because I got to keep everybody recurrent before they take anybody new, before they put on any sims for you. Is you're going to be last in the food chain, because they got to get the captains through first, along with the FOs currently in service second, and then come you, right? Then comes you. So just bide your time a little bit. I think it will all work out. But do consider, if you're making a career move in aviation, make sure that you're aware of how our industry can be. It can be very good. In fact, a lot of people just in the chats, on some Facebook groups the other day, were talking about it. And they're saying, I never had a ripple in my career. And that's true for a lot of people. It's true. It's not true for all people, but it depends on when you start. So, and then also, whatever you're doing right now, drop whatever you're doing and get to your time as quickly as possible. Because every year that you're not, every month almost, you're not working for an airline, you're losing about $20,000 at the end game. Because depending on where you start at and where you end up, you're going to end up flying a big piece of equipment near the end for the last 10 years of your career. And the last 10 years of your career, or the last 10 years of your possible career, right? So meaning that you may not get there until 5 years before the end of your career. But had you been not slacking and building your time now, you could have got there earlier, right? And received the benefit of having been there 2 or 3 more years earlier. So keep your eye on the ball is what I say. Okay, let's talk about the FAA Reauthorization bill and what's in it. So what's new? So this is just a quick update. It's nothing in detail, but I just wanted to run some points by you because I've got my ear to the ground on this thing so we can see what's going to happen. The first thing, it has to be enacted before March of 2024. That's the deadline. So something's got to be done there. So the things that are in it, these could be negotiated out. We don't know. But what's in it currently is increasing the mandatory retirement age for airlines, for captains, instead of 65, maybe to 67. They didn't say precisely, but that's the general idea. More sim time that could be counted, or let's say AATD time, towards ATP minimums. So you may be able to get there quicker by using an aviation flight training device, a flight sim, and credit that more of that time towards the ratings. That's a possibility. And the third thing is a mandate that if anybody wants a practical test for any certificate or rating, they'll be able to get one within 2 weeks. So that will really put the heat on FAA. When that comes out and if it gets codified into law, that's going to be something right there. And I think that's what we need. I think we need something like that. Okay, now let's finish off by the pro tips, all right? So there's 3 of them here, as we have every month. We have 3 pro tips for you. Sometimes they're very specific to a technique or whatever. So these are kind of, you'll see. So when you're performing on a gravel or sand surface, the run-up is going to be different than if you're on a paved or concrete surface, right? So, if you just train yourself and you say, I think I'll just go to this airport over here, which has gravel, and then you say, okay, I'll land there, which you can do. FAA doesn't require any more training out of you. You can go do that. And then let's say that you shut down and maybe there's something you wanted to do and you come back and now you have to do a run-up. If you do a run-up with gravel, or on sometimes even sand, you're going to damage your propeller, right? It's going to just pit the crap out of it. And you're not going to have a propeller pretty soon. The same with a seaplane, right? If you, in fact, how do you run up a seaplane? You think about that, right? What do you go anchor it, tie it down and do a run up? No, you do it on the fly. So in the same sense, you're going to do any high power work when you're taking the runway and on the roll. So it's going to be a little tricky, right? So, but you can't do a static run up on these surfaces. And even sometimes if the grass has just been cut on a grass runway, you don't want to do a run up there because you're going to suck in all those grass clippings into the intake, right? So you want to do that kind of on the fly. So as much as we would, teach people, hey, do everything when you're stopped, run the checklist when you're stopped, there are certain things that it's just not possible to do that way. So one is operating seaplanes, right? You've got to do the run up when you're moving. You've got to do it. If you want a high power setting, it's probably going to be while you're on the takeoff roll, right? Or is going to be on the takeoff roll. That's what we teach you. So that's one thing I wanted to tell you. So just really be aware of the area you're in when you're doing a run up. If you're running up and you're seeing yourself getting close to where the perimeter of the taxiway is, keep in mind that there's gravel over there too. And if that comes into the prop, it's not going to be a good day, right? And for you not even to know about it is even worse, because that can have all kinds of consequences in flight. So be careful of how and where you run up. All right, the next thing is removing frost, snow, and other contamination from the wings. That comes up a lot, especially this time of year. Not here in South Florida. I'm in Miami Beach right now, but it's not going to happen here. But it does happen in Northern California at our other location in Palo Alto, if there's moisture, right? So if the outside air temperature is above freezing, so if you manage to get out to the airport, you see all this frost and ice on the wings, and it's above freezing, you can actually take a garden hose with water, and you can spray it, and you can get rid of the frost and the ice. Now, if the surface is below freezing, still, it's going to refreeze most of it, so you have to wait a little bit. But if it's generally over freezing temperature by a fair measure, you don't have to brush that stuff all off. You can just take a big hose and spray it off, right? That will do the job. Now, if you need to decontaminate the surface and there's a lot of snow on it, you might want to brush it off first. But if you have the hose, it goes pretty good. Now, if you don't, then you can also use de-icing equipment. And de-icing equipment is, or de-icing fluid, I should say. It's not the equipment, but the fluid. But that's going to be really expensive, right? And it's really not meant for general aviation airplanes, because it's mostly we use it in jets because you have a holdover time, meaning that ice isn't going to stick onto it for, say, 20 minutes. So by that time, I'll be already through 15,000 feet. Then I can turn the de-icing equipment will then start doing its job. And then by the time I get to 20-some thousand feet, it'll be so cold the ice don't stick anyway. So it's good for that kind of thing. Surface operations, takeoffs, but it's not good to stay in it. So if there's icing out, probably not. But again, the other thing you can do, last thing you can do, which also works, but it takes a while, can take a while, is just go out and turn untie the airplane and turn it into where there's sun, so it'll sublimate. So, and you'll see it start dripping. The water and the ice will start sublimating and it'll turn into water and drip off the wings or off the surface and onto the ground. You never want to take off with any contamination on the wing at all. So not even a little bit. One tip of the day: if you do have to decontaminate it, you aren't able to use the hose, you can use a plastic credit card. Don't use the metal ones. Use a plastic one. It works pretty well. So you can do that as a scraper, okay, if you don't have such a thing. All right. The last thing is I teach this to our CFIs, and I will get some pushback from it, I'm sure. But this is for a single engine airplane. Let's not use this technique in a twin. So what is it? It's not teaching the student to climb at VX or VY unless they absolutely have to. So meaning that the performance dictates that they do that. So what does that mean? That means that if you take off and you climb at VX and VY, and you need to do that because performance requires it, then by all means do it. But if it doesn't, I'm a big proponent of just putting the airplane into a semi-cruise climb. I want to be able to see the horizon because I want to be able to see birds. I want to be able to see wildlife, and I want to be able to see other airplanes. And so then the advantage that you get from flying a single-engine airplane at VY, say 172. Now, this doesn't work for all airplanes, so please consult your CFI who's really familiar with your airplane to determine if this is a good idea for you, right? But in a 172, VY is about 74. And that'll give you, sea level probably 750 feet per minute is what you're going to get. If you put the nose on the horizon, you'll climb about 80, and you're going to get about 600 feet a minute. So you're going to get about 150 feet of less altitude for every minute that you're away. Now, so my question to you which has to be kind of answered, is what is the probability higher of you having a bird strike or maybe hitting another airplane or the engine quitting on takeoff? I think it's hitting wildlife is what I think. So therefore, I think it's better to sacrifice a little bit of climb performance and be able to see what's going on than to have a nose of the airplane way up there trying to get performance that, okay, I can use it if it happens. But how, if you think about 1 minute, 150 feet, that's a 10 to 1 guy can go another 1,000 feet. I can go another 1,500 feet of horizontal distance for that extra 150 feet that I gained. That may be important. That could be. So you have to look at the environment. And if the environment dictates that's important, then by all means do that. But if not, then make it so the student or you can see see out. So you can see if there's someone going to cut you off or see if there's birds. Like we have vultures here, big old black vultures. And they're around a lot. And also there in Palo Alto, we have seagulls, low-level pelicans, and Canadian geese. And there's been lots of bird strikes. And I haven't had one, and I think one of the reasons, I wouldn't say I won't ever have one, but one of the reasons is I'm pretty much aware of all the wildlife around me because I can see. All right, so that's what I was going to tell you. All right, so now, again, consult with your CFI on your particular airplane to see if that makes sense. There is also a case to be made that if you have an engine failure, when can you turn back? And there was Brian Schiff did an article on that, and AOPA did some testing on that. And so what they did was they just basically held the altitude for 5 seconds after the engine failure, then entered a 45-degree bank turn back to the runway. It's a 360. So just to see, because when you turn back around, you're not just turning 180. You got to turn past that because you have to overshoot. You'll be overshooting the runway, right? So it's going to be more than a 180-degree turn. So they just did a 360 and said mark that as an altitude because that's how much altitude you need. So the 5-second delay was for startle time, right? And the ASI, the Aviation Safety Institute, the Air Safety Institute, AOPA, took 3 airplanes. They took a Cub, they took a 172, and they took their Bonanza, and they did all the turnaround tests. And what they found was the Cub could easily do it at a particular altitude. It was like 500 feet, something like that. The 172 could do it between 500 and 1,000 feet, and the Bonanza could never do it. The glide ratio just wasn't good enough. So this depends on your airplane is what strategy you might use on this idea of not climbing out at VX or VY. In fact, you don't need to teach that to your students until when? 61.93, the 12 things for cross-country flying say at that point, climbs at VX and VY must be taught along with short field and soft field takeoffs and landings. Okay, well, that's it for this week, this month. Sorry, not this week. Well, I used to do them every week. That was a long time ago. And go to our website and get the newsletter, a PDF version of this. You can print it if you want to, but it's there for you. Also, we have a live power hour. This is episode or power hour 164, I think, coming up, or 165. We've done 1 hour deep dives into something aviation related, and we went over last time. We went over the errors in the FAA handbooks. There's a significant number of errors. Went through quite a few of those on the show, and we've done other sorts of things like that. We've covered regulations, difficult regulations, the latest legal interpretations. We've covered maneuvers, everything you can imagine. And the way you get onto that is go to our website. There's a red bar that appears at the top, and you click it, and it will get you access to the registration for the power hour. And then you get some emails to remind you when those power hours are and what the topic is going to be for this week. So if you don't like it, then you won't need to show up. But if you do like it, then you put on your calendar and you'll know that you need to show up on that day. All right, so that's good. And then the last thing is we will be in Las Vegas doing the initial CFI class with a sold-out show. So there's 12 in that class. It's at Chenault Flying Service, and there's no more room except for there's possibility of someone getting in remotely, but via Zoom, but no, in person not. And no, we don't have any flight spots or exams left. So the next one we'll do there will be in April. So if you're interested in Las Vegas, it's going to be in April. And February will be in Miami, and March will be in Palo Alto. So just so you know on those kind of things. And let's see, I want to give a plug to Dorothy and her Facebook group, which is the CFI study group. It's really good. I belong to there. Rod Machado belongs to there. A bunch of us belong to there. And we get a lot of people just ask questions, and we try to answer them without any judgment. That's the idea. So if you're studying for your CFI, that's a nice place to hang out. So give that a go if you can. It's CFI space study space group. And I think that'll be something you'd like if you're a CFI in training. Okay? And that's it for another episode, the December 2023 episode of Flight Training the Way I See It.